Hey guys, so I thought I'd cover some ideas for you guys. First off, some of you might be wondering, what is the Fraternity of Freedom, Equality, Liberty, or Death? And where is it from? Essentially, it's an idea which is a French idea. Essentially, it came about during the French Revolution. So, basically, there were a group of people who were very dissatisfied with their living conditions, and rose up against the government. Was the original. Okay, that's the short, abridged version. All right. But today, and in Australia, what's the relevance of that group? What is it? And it's not the same group, and it's also not there to overthrow a government. It's not there. It's not about that. What it is about is suggested in the name. It is about equality. It is about liberty, and it is about freedom. Okay. So basically, I'll read this out, and then I'll break down the statements in the this particular dialogue or monologue, I guess you'd call it. So, Fraternity of Freedom, Equality, Liberty, or Death. The idea is you must be 100% committed. Okay, this is not. I will explain with what and in what ways in a moment. This means you must be willing to win in any arena that they hold position. So anyone who is opposed to equality, liberty, or freedom, you must be willing to win in the arena that they are opposing those values. Okay, where they hold power, let that be where you bring equal challenge. Let no crevice, hideaway, or mental escape be. You must hold the arena and the market of ideas. You must hold the arena and market of authority. You must hold the arena and market of property. Okay. Does this mean you are overthrowing the government again? No. What it means is you have position there. You are letting people know, okay, that there is a set of values that must be pervasive. Okay, that's all this is. You do not need violence. You need right action in spite of it. You do not need money. You need right action in spite of it. You do not need propaganda. You need right action in spite of it. The force of right action with relentless vigor is irreversible and undeniable. Nothing can hold fast once it's awakened and unleashed. Okay, and this statement has very much to do with the people. Okay, the people of Australia, right? Or the great southern land of the Holy Spirit, in actual fact. But anyway, at first they will scoff, deny, and ignore. Then they will violently resist, abuse, and take retribution. Then they will submit, agree, and relinquish. This is the way of things. It is the battle of the wills. It always has been and always will be. If the people will it, so be it. So it must be. We must hold to with steely will and unrelenting clasp to our own set of values at all costs and in every medium. This is how we define our nation. This is how the path to freedom is achieved. So, I'm going to break down some of those statements because it's a rather bit of a wordy mouthful. Alright, so we'll talk about the arena and market of ideas. So, essentially every set of ideas gets judged by people as irrelevant bullshit or valuable to me or in my life. And there are a lot of people who I'm going to recommend in other videos to sort of show the value of these ideas. Okay, but right now the particular arenas that I'm talking about are the arenas and market of ideas and the arenas and market of authority. And that actually has to do with something which we are very ignorant of in Australia, and that's by no accident. It has to do with how we have an impact. Because, see, as the people, we really only have one mechanism directly available to us if we're not going to have a violent revolution. Yeah? And this is the point. If you want change, then you have to use that medium. And this has been identified by lobby groups and many other groups, which is basically you have to use the mechanisms of the law. Okay? Now, it's very difficult to use those mechanisms when you're not a lawyer, right? But there is constitutional validity to someone doing that. Now, the point is, Australia does have a constitution. So if you are committed, 100% committed, the point being is that you actually learn how to hold yourself in court. Okay? But you also learn about the arena of ideas and the arena of authority, which is generally the court and also philosophy before the court, so the history behind it. So things like the French Revolution, which and also Magna Carta, if you want to predate that, those sort of things, they're the things that you learn first, because you start to get a framing for what came later, which was the Constitution. Okay? And the Constitution and the way our government is set up is actually based off those prior things. So, an example of this, if you have a look at the French Revolution, okay, they talk about separation of powers. Now, these ideas were taken from all over the place, but the point being is it's very well surmised in the French Revolution. So, you look at the separation of powers, and guess what? We have a separation of powers. Okay, if you have a look at the idea of separation of church and state, okay, and if you have a look at, which is meant to be there, okay, if you have a look at the idea of the sovereign, okay, if you have, like, there are just all these ideas that came from that area, okay. So the problem is that we have a disempowered public who don't understand these ideas come first. So if basically you want to create a change, then you meet them in every arena, okay, and the most open arena to you is that one, okay. That arena being legal and ideas. You can release books, but that arena is not awakened right now. What I mean by that, not enlightened. There's one to put the heebie-jeebies in a monarchy. But that idea, right now we are in a kind of very strange legal paradox where the majority of the constitutional rights of the people are never maintained in a court case. So, and that is because the people don't know what their constitutional rights are. Okay, they don't know how to defend themselves in court, and they don't know. Like, I'm guilty of this. I have no idea, but in actual fact, I'm identifying what these things are. Okay, so what needs to change now? Point being, is that the only path? No, but it's the primary path first. So if you have the people and they start to group together and actually know this stuff and awaken the mechanisms of the Constitution the way it should be done, then you're going to have a more just court process. Okay, and these things, they sort of come out of all the works of Voltaire and some various others that came from that era, and they really basically put forward, it's like, this is how you do things more fairly, rather than incredibly biasly towards, say, the aristocrats and who get all their own way, or the bourgeoisie and these groups getting crushed down. So But basically, I'm going to just go through point by point now and break down the idea of this little short speech. Okay. So the fraternity of, well, first, the fraternity. What is it? It's a group of people who are committed to elevating the quality of life of Australian people, or otherwise known as the Great Southern Land of the Holy Spirit people, or the original people, whatever. Doesn't faze me. The name is irrelevant to me. It's just the people who live in this continent. So the values are freedom, equality, and liberty. So freedom is pretty self-explanatory. Like, you're free to do what you want, provided no one gets hurt. Yeah, that's it. That's what freedom is. It's not 1,000 licenses. Okay. Equality. So instead of having these class systems that exist, okay, where say one guy goes into court right now, for example. It doesn't even have to be court. I mean, really, one guy goes into buy a house and he gets a house 10 times the size. It's not. Equality is where two people are treated the same, like, value, essentially. So, and that fits in with all the sort of feminism things and any rights. Okay, those sort of things. So that's what equality is. Okay, and that's the major value. And liberty. And the meaning of liberty has changed. Okay, so the meaning of liberty used to be very expansive and was referring to almost a luxurious existence. Okay, and then at a certain point it changed. Okay, and now it's just liberty in general. Like, freedom is a similar thing, but the point is, it's the final statement, liberty or death. Okay, so then you have, that's how serious this is to you. I mean, it's very, you take these values so seriously, because when you do, that's when things change. If you have a large enough group of people who follow these tenets, because all these things come under the law, okay? They come under what creates a society which is fair for people, right? So it's not about any sort of ruthlessness or anything like that. It's specifically about a set of ideas that, when they're followed consistently and persistently by a group, they start to basically put pressure on the mechanisms to work properly. If they're not, okay, and if they are, it doesn't do anything, right? But the point being is, I'm sure we've all seen different mechanisms that don't work exactly right. So there you go. This is about that. Like, this is what it is. Like, freedom, liberty, and equality. So the group is about those specific things, and they're willing to go to any length for that. Okay, so they're willing to basically move between, different levels of knowledge, and sort of move between different philosophies and ideas, learn the law, become vocal, start to influence. That's what it's about, because once the ideas come, then it raises the awareness of the people, and once the people become aware that they have a set of rights and a very powerful constitution at the moment, they're awake, right? But the problem is that they don't know about this thing, okay, and they don't know how to enforce it. So that's a very long process of education, right? So, but the point is, that's why you need 100% commitment. Yeah. So this means you must be willing to win in any arena and hold position. Okay. So what is the arenas that are challenging the people for their rights? What is it? Where are these arenas? Where is it the people's rights are not being held? That's a good question. Because you find it, and why this is important is, okay, so say you're like, alright, I had some dealing with my boss that did not go right. Okay, didn't work. So then you go to take it to another level, and that dealing didn't work. Okay, and then you take it outside of that entire arena to a different arena, and that's meant to work, but it's been biased as well, right? And the thing is, then what do? You got nothing, right? So the issue then becomes, okay, how is it that you hold position? Well, that's the way you do it is by becoming familiar with these ideas. Okay, and then it goes on to say, where the hell power, let that be where you bring equal challenge. Okay, so you pay attention and you bring equal challenge to that. Now this may sound familiar to some of you, because this is how every group that is ever a lobby group, every group that is ever putting political pressure on people, every group that's even a powerful business, every group that's, you know, it's not new. There's nothing new under the sun, right? It's not a new idea, right? It's just new when it's done for the people. There are mechanisms, by the way, to ensure that it is done for the people. But guess what? You're not going to hear about them in the public medium. Okay? Yep. Let no crevice, hideaway, or mental escape be. Okay? So essentially, when it comes down to it, when you start winning in the arena of ideas, okay, in the arena of thought, and that starts to translate into the arena of authority and law, because it comes from ideas and philosophy. Okay, sort of one drifts into the other. That's when you get something which is the hideaways and mental escapes. So what you essentially get is people start hiding behind circular arguments and sets of ideas which can't be proven wrong, because in the premise it proves itself right by default. So regardless of if basically what I'm saying is it's not disprovable, so they hide behind it. It's like the premise of a god in a broader sense. Like you can't disprove a god. You can say the god isn't real because there's no evidence, but that's not disproving God. There's no counter thing. You can only replace it with another argument which is more accurate with less axioms, more, you know. And in the same way, that's when people start hiding behind circular arguments, because they want to stick to what they've already known. Okay, so you can't let that happen. Okay, you address what they have to say, and you do it clearly, and you do it in a way that is correct, and then you move on. Okay, but you can't just leave it to they're going to hide behind some circular arguments, and they call it Sufi logic, right? You can't let that be. Okay. Alright. So, you do not need violence, but you need to take right action in spite of it. So that you have got to the point where you are now influencing ideas, and you are essentially affecting authority. Okay. And this is not illegally, this is through media, books, things like this, and clarity and high quality ideas, like clarity of ideas and high quality ideas. So then you may run into, if your ideas are clear enough and have enough effect on the people, right, it's going to scare some people. And the problem is that often leads to violence. Okay, and the point is that you need to take right action in spite of it. Okay, you don't want to be violent. You don't want to be, you know, this isn't gun-toting, redneckian sort of ideas. You know, this is not about that. You're winning via actually a higher quality level of thinking, by bringing a greater level of awareness to the mass people. And once it happens, you rarely go back. I mean, if you look at slavery, and see, I don't talk about feminism much because it has like a kind of dark side to it, but one thing that the feminist movement claim, some of them, is that they were greatly responsible behind the scenes for the abolishment of slavery, right? And I think this is true to a large extent, but I'm not going to go into how it's true. But the point is that we haven't really brought that back, have we? We haven't really brought slavery back, okay? Talking about French Revolution before, at a certain point during that, well, actually just before the French Revolution, the French were the greatest, well, they actually did more slave trading than Britain, okay? But anyway, getting off topic there. So, essentially, you take right action in spite of it, okay? So you're committed, so you take the actions that need to be taken in spite of the violence. You don't resort to it, you do it in spite of it. Same as money, okay? You do not need money, you need to take right action in spite of it. Okay, so you do these things in spite of if you have money, and you do it in spite of if there is violence involved. You do not need propaganda, but you need right action in spite of it. Okay, because you're going to face all these things. These are the things that come up when you come out with a high quality set of ideas. And like I said, once ideas of higher quality nature, like say an alternative system of capitalism without slavery in the direct sense, comes out, that's it. We don't go back. It's not. It doesn't. That rarely happens. Once a consciousness is raised, it's like, no, that's a stupid idea, and everyone thinks it's obvious, right? But they don't see all the things behind the scenes that actually change these things, right? So that's what I'm saying. Okay, right action. The right action is what changed it, and once that happens and people's awareness is raised, then we don't go back. Okay. The force of right action with relentless vigor is irreversible and undeniable. Nothing can hold fast against it once it's awakened and unleashed. Okay, so again, that's just reiterating. It's like the same thing with when slavery was removed. Okay, the people became aware of right action. Okay, they became aware. It's like, okay, no. Okay. At first, they scoff, and you may notice this quote is actually familiar. At first, they scoff, deny, and ignore. Okay, so it's not word for word, but essentially, when the ideas first come out, okay, you're going to come across something which is people will scoff, deny, and ignore. Okay, they'll just be like, it's another set of ideas, because we're inundated today with bullshit ideas, and lots of them. But the ideas that I'm talking about, they're not my own, but they work. They've been around for a long time, and they've got some brilliant thinkers behind them. Yeah, and the point being is like, okay, so what's the point of this whole group then? What's the point of this fraternity? It's because the whole point of it is to raise awareness. It's to raise the level of thinking that people are at. Okay, that's really what it's about. It's once you've raised that level of awareness, you've done your job, because you can't go back once it's out there. And Australia's awareness of the value of these sort of ideas is very low. Otherwise, it would have already happened. Okay, there are a lot of people who like the idea of revolution. You're like, revolution, yeah, and then you got all the people who are like, anarchy, yeah, right? And all these movements that want change, right? But they don't know that all of the things that they're proposing have pretty much been thought of and designed and put out there already, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. And people have already made systems based off it and already built a thing that works. And the problem is that their own awareness of the systems they have isn't enough to change the system. So that's all they've got to do. But it's easy to say that, but it's simple. If they want to change things and in a legal way, then all they have to do is start to think on that level where it's like, okay, first off, am I committed? Am I 100% committed? Yes. Okay. Learn the Constitution. Okay. How many of us putting writs in the court, putting forth torts, putting forth the law, right, will it take before they start to notice that we pay attention now to the laws that already exist to protect us, and the processes that exist to protect us, and the lack of them sometimes, right? That's what it's about. And that's what this whole idea is about. Okay. So at first they scoff, deny, ignore. Then they violently resist, abuse, and take retribution. So essentially, the set of ideas, if it's perceived as a threat to the people in power, right? If they think, oh, these people want power over us, right? Then you get the natural, like, crackback of that, okay? And it's a fear tactic as well. But that's just the natural progression, okay? It's like if the ideas are that potent, then naturally there's going to be violent resistance, there's going to be abuse, which is abuse of power, and you're going to get people taking retribution against the people who put out the ideas, okay? That's not... What that is actually an acknowledgement that the ideas work. Then, because the ideas work, they will submit, they'll agree, or they'll relinquish and/or, okay? Which just means they'll be like, as long as you stay out of our way, right? Don't get in our way. Don't be like trying to, you know, overthrow us or any of that shit. That's basically going to be the attitude. Have it your way, but we still hold the reins. Okay, that's what they want. So you don't need. It's like there's a saying about billionaires and rich people in general. It's like you don't need to own it. Okay, and it's true. It's not going to be your, you know, system. That's not what this is about. Okay, it's not your system. What it's going to be is the system that exists already that belongs to someone else is going to be run. And it's going to be run because you're going to have a group of people there who are like, we will hold fast in every position to make sure it's done that way, right? And it's not like these people have any vigilante anything, right? All there is like, because that's the first thing that pops into mind. It's like, this is a group of vigilantes, a group of, you know, it's like some group of whatever. But it's like, no, all it is, you've got people who are educated, who are into the ideas that are actually like the nation's already built off, and they understand the law and they're committed to it. They understand political processes and they're committed to it. They understand authority and they're committed to it. They understand the market of ideas and they're committed to it. They understand, you know, all these different arenas, right? Property. They understand property and they're committed to it. So that when you have that, right, what group of people would want those pain in the ass people to actually like have them on the radar? That's not a new idea. Like I said, that's being used by all of the lobby groups. It's being used by any group which has a set of individual rights, even animal rights, literally animals, right? They all use these ideas, okay? It's just, this just becomes a different group. And to me, it's like, well, who's the group that need it the most, right? I'll tell you who the group that need it the most is. It's the general public, okay? But the way it works is you get the general public, like you help the general public by having groups of people who are committed to these ideas over a long term, okay? And it starts out at the beginning, like I said, with just the name, right? And then it gets to the back here. So, this is the way of things. It is a battle of the wills. It always has been and always will be. If the people will it, so it will be, okay? Which is also true. So, essentially, the point is these people will have a stronger will than anyone else. That's the idea of the group, is committed to having a stronger will. They will commit more and they will stay to what they have committed, full stop, right? And it's not that what they're doing is this huge thing. Whatever they commit to, that's all they have to do, but they'll just stick to that, right? And by doing that, they start to instigate change. Okay. We must hold with steely will and unrelenting clasp to our own values at all costs in every medium. This is how we define our nation. This is our path to freedom. So essentially, once you have that level of will, that's when you start to define things. That's it. That's all you got. Okay, that's how you make a change in a nation. Okay. All right. So I hope that explains things, guys. All right. Cheers.